Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Smart podcast. Today, we're diving into something that I think we can all relate to: staying calm under pressure. I mean, who hasn't felt their heart race before a big presentation or fumble over their words during a tough conversation?
Oh, yeah. It's the human experience, isn't it? But what's fascinating to me is that some people just seem to navigate those situations with an almost superhuman sense of calm. And so for this deep dive, we're going to tap into some wisdom from a source you might not expect: Navy SEALs.
Okay, Navy SEALs. Now, that's what I call high pressure. They're literally trained to stay cool in life or death scenarios. So what's their secret weapon?
Well, the source emphasizes that a calm mind isn't about the absence of stress, but mastery over it. It's about, building that mental resilience, that inner strength to weather any storm.
So it's less about avoiding pressure altogether and more about equipping ourselves to handle it effectively.
Exactly. It's like training for a marathon. You don't just show up on race day and expect to run 26 miles without any preparation. You put in the work, you build up your endurance so that when the going gets tough, you can push through.
That's a great analogy. So how do we start training our minds for these mental marathons? What are some of the techniques that Navy SEALs use to stay calm under fire?
One of the simplest yet most effective techniques highlighted in the source is something called box breathing.
Okay, box breathing. I've heard of this, but honestly, I always thought it sounded a bit too basic. I mean, can something this simple really make a difference in a high-pressure situation?
It might seem surprising, but the science behind it is solid. You see, when we're stressed, our nervous system kicks into, that fight or flight mode. Our heart rate increases, our breathing becomes shallow, and our body releases a surge of adrenaline.
Yeah, I definitely know that feeling. It's like your whole body goes on high alert.
Exactly. And while that response can be helpful in, truly dangerous situations, it's not so helpful when you're trying to give a presentation or negotiate a deal.
Right, because all that adrenaline just makes you feel more anxious and jittery.
Exactly. That's where box breathing comes in. It's a simple 4-step process. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and hold again for 4 seconds.
Okay, I can definitely handle that. But how does something so straightforward actually work to calm us down?
By consciously controlling our breath, we're essentially sending a signal to our nervous system that everything is okay, that we're safe. This helps to slow down our heart rate, reduce muscle tension, and shift us out of that fight or flight response.
So it's like a little reset button for our brains.
Precisely. And the beauty of it is that you can do it anywhere, anytime. You don't need any special equipment or a quiet room. You can practice box breathing at your desk, in a meeting, even while driving in traffic.
Okay, now that's a tool I can definitely get behind. It's practical, it's discreet, and it sounds like it can really make a difference in those moments when you feel that pressure building.
Absolutely. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes, almost like a reflex. It's like having a secret weapon in your back pocket to pull out whenever you need it.
I love that. So we've got box breathing as our first tool for staying calm under pressure. What else can we add to our mental toolkit?
Well, another powerful technique that the source highlights is the idea of reframing challenges. It's about, shifting our perspective, moving away from seeing problems as insurmountable obstacles and instead viewing them as opportunities for growth.
I've heard this concept before, but I'm always eager to learn more about how to actually apply it.
Well, the source gives a fantastic example of this using Thomas Edison and his invention of the light bulb.
Oh, yes. Edison famously said something like, "I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Talk about reframing failure.
Exactly. Instead of seeing those thousands of failed attempts as setbacks, he viewed them as valuable data points, as stepping stones on the path to success. He reframed the problem as a series of experiments, each one bringing him closer to his goal.
That's such a powerful shift in mindset. So how can we learn to reframe challenges like Edison did?
Well, it starts with awareness. The next time you find yourself facing a difficult situation, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what if this isn't a problem, but rather a challenge that I can learn and grow from?
Okay, so it's about consciously choosing to see the situation from a different perspective, focusing on the potential for growth rather than getting bogged down in negativity.
Exactly. It's about asking yourself, what can I learn from this situation? How can I use this experience to make myself stronger, more resilient, more resourceful?
I love that. It's like turning a roadblock into a stepping stone.
Precisely. And this idea of reframing challenges ties into another key point from the source: the importance of daily training for the mind.
So it's like going to the gym, but for our mental muscles.
Exactly. Just like we need to exercise our bodies to stay physically fit, we need to exercise our minds to stay mentally strong and resilient.
So what kind of mental workouts do you recommend?
The source highlights several practices that can help us build mental resilience, including meditation, visualization, reading, and even exercise.
Okay, let's break those down one by one. Starting with meditation. I'll admit, I've always struggled to make meditation a consistent habit. I don't know, it feels a bit intimidating.
I understand. But remember, meditation doesn't have to be this mystical hour-long ritual. Even just 5 or 10 minutes a day can make a huge difference.
Hey, that feels a lot more manageable. But what exactly are we supposed to do during those 5 or 10 minutes?
It can be as simple as finding a comfortable seat, closing your eyes and focusing on your breath. Notice the rise and fall of your chest, the coolness of the air as you inhale, the warmth of the air as you exhale.
So it's about bringing our awareness to the present moment, quieting those racing thoughts that often fuel our anxiety.
Exactly. And when those thoughts inevitably arise, and they will simply acknowledge them without judgment and gently guide your attention back to your breath.
It sounds like a way to create some space between ourselves and those swirling thoughts to gain a sense of perspective and calm.
Precisely. And with practice, you'll find that you're able to access that calm state more easily, even in the midst of challenging situations.
Okay, I'm feeling more inspired to give meditation another try. What about visualization? I've heard athletes use this technique to improve their performance. How can it help us stay calm under pressure?
Well, visualization is a powerful tool that can be used in a variety of ways. One way is to use it to mentally rehearse a situation that's causing you anxiety, like giving a presentation or having a difficult conversation.
So it's like creating a mental movie of ourselves successfully navigating that situation.
Exactly. Close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and imagine yourself walking into that meeting room with confidence, delivering your presentation with clarity and poise, handling those tough questions with grace and composure.
And the more we rehearse it in our minds, the more prepared we'll feel when the real situation arises.
Precisely. It's like anything else. The more we practice, the better we become. And by visualizing ourselves successfully navigating those challenging situations, we're building up our confidence and reducing those feelings of anxiety.
Okay, I can see how visualization could be a game changer. What about reading? How does that contribute to staying calm under pressure?
Well, reading can benefit us in several ways. Firstly, it expands our knowledge and understanding of the world, which can help us feel more confident and prepared to face whatever challenges come our way.
It's like building up a mental arsenal of information and insights to draw upon when the pressure is on.
Exactly. And secondly, reading can help us escape from the daily grind to relax and de-stress. It's like taking a mini vacation for our minds.
I definitely find that a good book can be the perfect antidote to a stressful day. It's like hitting the pause button on all those racing thoughts.
Exactly. And speaking of hitting the pause button, let's not forget about the importance of exercise for mental well-being.
Okay, so we're not just talking about mental workouts here, but physical ones too.
Absolutely. Exercise is not just about physical fitness, it's about mental fitness too.
So how exactly does hitting the gym or going for a run help us stay calm under pressure?
Well, for one thing, exercise releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects. It's like a natural antidepressant. And secondly, exercise helps to reduce stress hormones like cortisol. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, going for a brisk walk or hitting the gym can actually help to calm your mind and body.
I know, I always feel more clear-headed and focused after a good workout. It's like all that mental clutter gets cleared away.
Exactly. And lastly, exercise can be a great way to build discipline and mental toughness. When you push yourself physically, you're also training yourself to push through discomfort, to persevere even when things get tough.
That's a great point. It's like building up that mental grit that can help us face any challenge, whether it's a physical workout or a high-pressure situation at work.
Exactly. So we've got box breathing, reframing challenges, meditation, visualization, reading, and exercise. That's a pretty solid toolkit for staying calm under pressure.
I agree. But there's one more element that the source emphasizes that I think is really important, and that's the role of our social connections.
Ah, yes, the company we keep. Our relationships can have a profound impact on our ability to handle stress and stay calm in challenging situations.
I've definitely noticed that spending time with certain people leaves me feeling energized and uplifted, while others seem to drain my energy and amplify my anxieties.
It's like negativity can be contagious, isn't it?
It really can. So how do we make sure we're surrounding ourselves with people who support our well-being and help us stay calm under pressure?
The source encourages us to be mindful of who we allow into our inner circle. Ask yourself, do these people lift me up or drag me down? Do they inspire me to be my best self, or do they fuel my self-doubt and anxieties?
Those are really powerful questions to reflect on. I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've talked about the importance of a calm mind, explored the science behind box breathing, learned how to reframe challenges like Thomas Edison, and discussed the benefits of daily mental and physical training. Plus, we've touched on the power of choosing our social circles wisely.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion so far, and there's so much more to uncover.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve even deeper into the strategies and insights from our Navy SEAL source, exploring powerful metaphors and practical techniques for mastering your mind under pressure.
We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back to the Speak Smart podcast. We left off talking about surrounding ourselves with the right people.
Yeah, because when you're facing a challenge, the people you have in your corner can make all the difference. But before we dive back into that, I wanted to pick up on something you said earlier about training our minds for mental marathons. It really resonated with me.
I'm glad to hear that. It's such a powerful concept, and it's something that the source really emphasizes.
Right, because it's easy to think that staying calm under pressure is just something some people are naturally good at.
But the truth is, it's a skill like any other that can be developed with practice.
Which brings us back to that question. How do we train for those mental marathons? What are some of the specific exercises or practices we can incorporate into our daily routines?
Well, we've already talked about a few key tools like box breathing, reframing challenges, and surrounding ourselves with positive people. But the source also introduces a really powerful metaphor that can help us understand this concept of mental training.
Ooh, I love a good metaphor. Tell me more.
Think about life's challenges as storms.
Storms. Okay, I'm intrigued.
The source makes the point that storms are inevitable. They're a natural part of life. We can't control when or where they'll hit, but we can control how prepared we are for them.
So it's not about avoiding storms altogether, but rather about building the resilience to weather them.
Exactly. Imagine a house built on a weak foundation. When a big storm hits, it's likely to crumble. But a house built on solid ground with strong walls and a sturdy roof, well, it'll be able to withstand the onslaught.
I see where you're going with this. Our minds are like those houses. We need to build a strong foundation of mental resilience so that when those storms of stress and pressure hit, we don't crumble.
Precisely. And that foundation is built through those daily practices we've been talking about. Meditation, visualization, reading, exercise, even box breathing. These are all like the bricks and mortar that strengthen our mental walls and help us weather those storms.
And surrounding ourselves with the right people, that's like having a strong support system to help us rebuild if any part of our structure gets damaged.
Exactly. It's about having people in our lives who will offer encouragement, support, and practical help when those storms hit.
Because let's face it, even with the best preparation, sometimes those storms can be really intense.
That's true. And that's where having that support system, those people who can help us batten down the hatches and ride out the storm, becomes even more crucial.
It's like having a crew to help you navigate those rough seas.
Right. And speaking of navigation, I think it's important to point out that staying calm under pressure isn't just about passively enduring those storms. It's also about actively navigating them, making choices that will help us reach calmer waters.
That's a great point. It's about using those tools and techniques we've been discussing to steer our ship in the right direction, even when the winds are howling and the waves are crashing.
Exactly. And that takes practice. It takes developing that mental muscle memory so that when we're faced with a challenging situation, we're able to access those tools and techniques almost instinctively.
So it's about training our minds to respond rather than react to those high-pressure situations.
Precisely. And that's where something like box breathing can be so helpful. It gives us a way to interrupt that automatic stress response, to create a pause, a moment of space where we can choose a more intentional, skillful response.
It's like hitting the pause button on our autopilot so we can take back control of the situation.
I love that analogy. It's about moving from that reactive state of fight or flight to a more responsive state of observe, assess, choose.
And that choice, that ability to respond rather than react, is really where our power lies.
Absolutely. It's about reclaiming our agency, our ability to choose how we want to show up in the world, even when we're facing difficult circumstances.
You know, this all reminds me of that famous Viktor Frankl quote. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
That's such a perfect quote for this discussion. It really captures the essence of what we're talking about here. We always have a choice in how we respond to life's challenges, even when it feels like we don't.
And sometimes the most powerful choice we can make is to simply pause, take a breath, and create that space where we can access our wisdom, our strength, and our resilience.
Beautifully said. And, speaking of breath, I think it's worth circling back to the power of deep breathing, not just as a tool for calming down in the moment, but as a daily practice for cultivating a greater sense of inner peace and clarity.
I'm all for that. I definitely notice that when I make a conscious effort to incorporate deep breathing into my daily routine, I feel more grounded, centered, and less reactive to stress.
It's amazing, isn't it? Something so simple yet so profound. It's like a mini meditation that we can do anytime, anywhere.
And it's a great reminder that building resilience isn't just about those big dramatic moments of facing down a storm. It's also about those small, consistent practices that we weave into our daily lives.
Exactly. It's about cultivating those habits of mind, those ways of being that support our well-being and help us navigate life's challenges with more grace and ease.
It's like building up that inner reservoir of strength so that when those inevitable storms do hit, we have the resources to weather them.
And as we continue to build that reservoir, we also start to realize that we're not alone in this journey. Everyone faces storms in their lives.
That's such an important point. It's easy to feel isolated in our struggles, to think that we're the only ones going through tough times, but the truth is we're all in this together.
And just knowing that can be incredibly comforting and empowering. It reminds us that we're part of a larger human experience, that we're not alone in facing those storms.
It's like that saying, we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. Some of us have bigger boats, some of us have smaller boats, but we're all navigating those rough waters together.
Exactly. And sometimes the best thing we can do is to reach out a hand and offer support to those who might be struggling to stay afloat.
Whether it's a kind word, a listening ear, or a practical offer of help, those small acts of compassion can make a world of difference.
They really can. And it's not just about supporting others, it's also about allowing ourselves to receive support when we need it.
That can be tough sometimes, especially for those of us who are used to being the strong ones, the ones who offer support to others.
I know. But it's so important to remember that we don't have to go through those storms alone. There are people who care about us, who want to help us, and who are willing to lend a hand when we need it.
And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to ask for that help, to let others know that we're struggling and that we need their support.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how this all circles back to the idea of building a strong social network, surrounding ourselves with people who lift us up and inspire us to be our best selves.
Because those are the people who will be there for us, not just in the good times, but also in those moments when we're feeling overwhelmed by the storms of life.
And speaking of storms, it seems like we've reached another turning point in our deep dive.
Indeed. We've covered so much ground today, from the power of metaphor to the importance of social connection.
But don't worry, we'll be back for part 3, where we'll wrap up our exploration of staying calm under pressure.
We'll delve even deeper into those practical techniques for mastering your mind, building resilience, and navigating those inevitable storms of life.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Speak Smart podcast for the final part of our deep dive into staying calm under pressure.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey so far, exploring all these techniques and insights from our Navy SEAL source.
One thing that's really struck me throughout this conversation is that staying calm under pressure, it isn't about becoming some kind of emotionless robot.
Right. It's not about suppressing our emotions or pretending that, that challenges don't exist.
Exactly. It's more about learning to, ride the waves, so to speak, to navigate those choppy waters without getting completely capsized by our emotions.
Oh, I love that analogy. It's about developing that inner surfer who can stay balanced and centered even when the waves are crashing all around.
And the source really emphasizes that this ability to stay calm, it is a skill that can be cultivated, not something you're just born with.
Yeah, that's such an empowering message, isn't it? It means that no matter what our starting point is, we can all learn to become more resilient, more grounded, and more capable of handling pressure effectively.
It's like learning any new skill, whether it's playing an instrument or speaking a new language. It takes practice, patience, and a willingness to make mistakes along the way.
Right. And just like with learning any new skill, having a good teacher can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And in this case, we're fortunate to have the wisdom and experience of Navy SEALs to guide us.
You know, they've been through some of the most intense, high-pressure situations imaginable, so they have a lot to teach us about staying calm and focused when the stakes are high.
And one of the key lessons they emphasize is the importance of taking personal responsibility for our responses.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that we always have a choice in how we react to a situation, even when it feels like things are, spinning out of control.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of blaming external circumstances or other people for our stress and anxiety.
Right. But ultimately, we're the ones in the driver's seat of our own minds.
And that realization can be both liberating and a little daunting, right? Because it means we have the power to choose our response, but it also means we have to own the consequences of those choices.
Exactly. But the source reminds us that true growth and empowerment come from stepping into that space of responsibility, from recognizing that we have the ability to shape our own experience, even in the face of adversity.
So it's about taking ownership of our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions, rather than letting them control us.
And that takes courage. It takes willingness to look inward, to examine our own patterns and habits, and to make conscious choices about how we want to show up in the world.
It's not always easy, but the source reminds us that the rewards are well worth the effort.
They are, because when we cultivate that inner strength, that resilience, we not only benefit ourselves, but we also have a positive impact on the people around us.
We become calmer, more patient, more compassionate, more capable of offering support to others in their times of need.
It's like a ripple effect of positivity, spreading outwards from that core of inner peace and resilience that we've cultivated within ourselves.
And speaking of positivity, one of the things I've appreciated about this deep dive is that it's not just about surviving those storms of pressure and stress.
Right. It's not just about damage control.
Exactly. It's also about thriving, about using those challenges as opportunities for growth and transformation.
It's about embracing those storms as a natural part of life's journey, as opportunities to learn, to evolve, and to become even stronger and more resilient.
And the source reminds us that we don't have to do it alone.
Absolutely. We have those tools and techniques we've been discussing. We have the wisdom and experience of those who have gone before us, and we have each other.
And sometimes just knowing that we're not alone in facing those storms can make all the difference.
It can. It can give us that extra boost of courage, that sense of solidarity that reminds us that we're capable of weathering any storm that comes our way.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm feeling incredibly inspired and empowered by all that we've explored together.
Me too. It's been such a rich and insightful conversation.
And I hope our listeners are feeling that same sense of inspiration and empowerment.
Because ultimately, that's what this deep dive has been all about. Helping you discover the power within yourself to stay calm, focused, and resilient, no matter what challenges life throws your way.
Thank you for listening to the Speak Smart podcast. And remember to subscribe to my channel and hit the button. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.